Howdy everybody, Cub here. Welcome to the Ultimate Survival Guide for Minecraft 1.18. This video will show you all of the survival relevant changes to Minecraft 1.18 so that you can survive and thrive in the Caves and Cliffs Part 2 update, aka 1.18. So, without further ado, let's get into it. This Ultimate Survival Guide is split up into 5 different sections. The first has to do with new blocks and new items, as well as changes to those blocks and items. The second has to do with mobs and mob changes, including changes to mob spawning. The third has to do with world generation and how that has totally changed. The fourth deals specifically with ore generation, including new ores and where to find them, as well as ore veins. And finally, the fifth and final section is everybody's favorite section, the Miscellaneous section. So, you can click on the timestamps in the description below, or just wait, and let's get started. So first off, the new blocks in this update, or more accurately, the new block, because there's actually only one, and that is the Spore Blossom. This is the only new block in Minecraft 1.18, and it looks like this. You can see when you place it, it starts to emit some particles, both straight down underneath the Spore Blossom, and also around in the atmosphere around the Spore Blossoms. So we got a lot of particles now floating around. These are also found in Lush Caves, and they are not renewable. So if you see these, you may want to gather them, as you cannot get any more of them in your world other than what's naturally generated in the Lush Caves. So to get them, all you have to do is simply punch them with your fist, and the flowers just simply drop off like this. So that is the Spore Blossom, the new block in Minecraft 1.18. One block of copper can now be converted into 4 blocks of cut copper by the stone cutter, which is a 4-fold increase in the number of cut copper blocks you get from a single block of copper. The enchantment table has now been changed, so it emits a light level of 7, as you can see here. Now moving on to new items. First of all, we have a new music disc added to the game in this update, and that is Other Side by Lena Rain. So if we take this music disc out of here, these can be found in stronghold chests like this one, or also very rarely in dungeon chests. We can actually play this in the jukebox, just like that. So that is Other Side by Lena Rain. And it also emits a signal strength of 14 if you take a comparator out of the jukebox, which is a unique signal strength for a music disc. Buried treasure will now sometimes contain water-breathing potions in addition to the other loot that's found there. The conduit now has an assigned tool, the pickaxe, which means you can now break it much quicker than before. Now on to mobs and mob changes. First of all, the axolotl spawning has changed in this update. Axolotls can now only spawn in lush cave biomes in water with clay below the water where they will potentially spawn. So that is the change to axolotl spawning. And also they have their own mob cap now. So yeah, quite a few changes to the axolotl spawning. There's also been a big change to glow squids in this update. Glow squids can only spawn now in water below Y30 in height. Another interesting change to aquatic life is that cod, salmon, pufferfish, tropical fish, squid, and dolphins will now only spawn above height level 50, where I'm swimming right now. So all the mobs that you see here will now spawn only near the surface of the water and not further down, although obviously if they swim downwards, they can migrate downwards from where they initially spawn, but you won't see them spawning below this height level. The only exception to this rule is that tropical fish in lush cave biomes can now spawn in lush cave biomes in water at any height. So you can see a couple here, and if we move around here, yeah, there's a few more over here. So that's pretty cool. You can find tropical fish in lush caves. Another interesting mob spawning change is that inside of aquifers in the Dripstone Caves biomes, you can sometimes have drown spawn like this one right down here. Goat spawning has also changed this update. Goats will now only spawn on frozen peaks, snowy slopes, or jagged peak biomes. Another change in this update is that golden foods will now attract horses, donkeys, and mules. So as you can see here, they will all start to follow me if I'm holding this golden carrot. And this also holds true for other golden foods like golden apples and enchanted golden apples. If I hold either one of those, they will continue to follow me, and I can direct them wherever I want. In the same manner, llamas are now attracted by hay bales, and yeah, you can lure a llama with the hay bale now. The biggest change to mobs and mob spawning in this update, and I would argue in the history of the game, is that mobs will now only spawn in absolute darkness. So what does this mean? If I place a light source down here, anywhere light touches, mobs can no longer spawn there. So, for instance, if I go all the way over here, you can see there's maybe a little bit of light hitting these blocks over here from the torch. As it's not quite as dark as, some blocks out here, which are in absolute darkness. And so if we look at the debug menu here, you can see, yeah, light level 4 on this block. The block light level is what's relevant here. So mobs actually can't spawn here, they can't spawn here, and they actually can't spawn on this block either because it's light level 1, but they can spawn here since this is in absolute darkness. And you can kind of see, like, some of these blocks are starting to get dark, but they're not quite totally as dark as the ones out here. So that's what that means, and that mobs can only spawn in absolute darkness. This also means that other light sources become relevant. So for instance, like large amethyst buds, these emit a small level of light, as you can see, and it actually prevents spawning if it's right there inside of the red concrete area here. So yeah, I actually have a whole video on this talking about its implications and why I think it's great for the game, so I'll provide a link in the cards to that video. Evokers, Vindicators, Pillagers, and Ravagers will ignore any baby villagers, such as these over here, and they will only attack adult villagers. Now on to world generation changes. First of all, world height has been increased to 384 blocks in this update, 320 blocks above Y0, and also 64 blocks below. So if I fall all the way down here, you can see it's quite a long journey to fall down now. And we fall all the way through the world here, and we end up down here at minus 62. The actual final bedrock level is down here at minus 64, as you can see. And yeah, below Y0, we actually have deep slate and other blocks like tuff and things. So yeah, that's how you can tell if you're above or below Y0 now. As you can see, this is about 0. Yep, pretty close. So that's kind of interesting. There are a couple of new biomes that are added in Minecraft 1.18. One such biome is the Lush Cave biome, which you can see around me. It's a biome that's characterized by a lot of greenery, so we got moss blocks, we got big drip leaves, azaleas, small drip leaves in certain areas, as well as large amounts of clay and water pools, so these are sort of sprinkled throughout. We also have on the ceiling a lot of the glowberries right here, which provide a little bit of lighting if you don't have night vision like I do now. And we have some Spore Blossoms which grow on the underside of a lot of the blocks. So that is the Lush Cave biome right there. There's also a good way to find those Lush Caves from the surface. All you need to do is simply look for an azalea tree like this, which usually has sort of like a windswept shape. There are also azalea leaves and flowering azalea leaves here on the surface. And beneath the trunk of the tree, you'll find some rooted dirt. And if you follow this rooted dirt down into the caves, like I'm going to do right here, we should find ourselves eventually, yep, in a lush cave. Very good. Dripstone Caves are another new biome added underground in 1.18. It's made up primarily of things like dripstone blocks and pointed dripstone. The pointed dripstone can actually grow from the bottom up in the form of a stalagmite and from the top down in the form of a stalactite from the ceiling. So that's kind of interesting. Also, Dripstone Caves have more copper than other biomes. So if you're looking for copper, come here to mine. You can see obviously there's a huge amount of copper right here. And we also have some, yeah, over there. And there's a little bit down there too. And there's some over here. So if you need copper, go and mine in the Dripstone Cave biome. There are also some dripstone caves that can form which are absolutely massive and have huge stalagmites and stalactites made out of dripstone blocks themselves. So yeah, quite a lot of variety in all these caves. In addition to the cave biomes, there is also what I would consider to be a new biome in the sparse jungle biome. So this is the sparse jungle biome here. Technically, this was already in the game, and it was named Jungle Edge, and they just renamed the biome. But now it's no longer sort of a like mini biome, whereas before it was usually just like a sliver a couple blocks across at the very edge of the jungle. Now it's actually its own proper biome, and you can see what it looks like here with the sparse jungle trees. There's also cocoa beans on these jungle trees, and you can find melons here as well. But I feel like this biome is a little bit more relevant now that it has its own sort of distinct area, and it's not just, you know, a couple blocks wide on the edge of the regular jungle where players barely noticed it before. So that is the sparse jungle biome. Mountains now come in 6 different sub-biomes as of 1.18, so let's go through them since they're all kind of unique. So first off, we have the Meadows. The Meadows can only spawn donkeys, rabbits, and sheep. So if we fly along here, there's a rabbit right there in this meadow biome, and we should hopefully see some sheep down here. Yep, there's some sheep right there. So only rabbits, donkeys, and sheep will appear in this biome. And you can see it's sort of like a plateau-esque flowery biome. Think The Sound of Music, if you have ever seen that. So that is what this biome is. Also, any trees that generate here will always have bees' nests. So this tree over here, you can see we got a bee nest right here on this tree. And there's also one on this tree over here as well. So bees' nests will always generate in trees in the meadow biome. So that's a useful fact to know. And also you can have villages and pillager outposts generating in this biome as well. It was not in this biome itself, but here's a photo of a village in a meadow biome. So there you go. Next up, we have the grove biome. You can think of this as a snowy taiga biome, except without the grass on the ground. Instead of grass, it is actually snow and powdered snow. So you got to be a little careful when you're in this biome when you traverse into it. You don't accidentally walk into some powdered snow like this. Like this is a powdered snow drift right here, a couple blocks deep. So just be aware of that. The grove typically generates on the snowy slopes of mountains next to forested biomes. And rabbits, wolves, foxes, sheep, pigs, chickens, and cows can all spawn within this biome. And also pillager outposts can generate here. The next subbiome that's new is the snowy slopes biome, which we're in right now. The snowy slopes biome is just exactly that, a snowy slope which leads up to mountains typically. It's covered in snow, snow blocks, and powdered snow. Only rabbits and goats can spawn here, but you can also have igloos as well as pillager outposts generating in this biome. Then we have the next biome very close by, which is the Jagged Peaks biome. You can see right here, actually, I believe it would probably be, Jagged Peaks, because you can see sort of like this this tooth pattern here. That's pretty typical of Jagged Peaks. And Jagged Peaks are usually covered in snow, snow blocks, and stone. So all these here are actually Jagged Peaks. So if we get over here, you can see, Jagged Peaks here, Jagged Peaks there. And only goats can spawn here, but you can get pillager outposts spawning in these Jagged Peaks as well. Next up, we have Frozen Peaks. Frozen Peaks are different from Jagged Peaks in that they have packed ice in the top of the biome. There's also some regular ice mixed in as well. Goats, once again, are the only mobs that can spawn here, but you can also have pillager outposts in these Frozen Peaks. The final subbiome of mountains added in this update is Stony Peaks. Obviously, Stony Peaks are basically stony mountains. You can see they're made primarily of stone and gravel, and they also have strips of calcite going up and down the sides of the mountains, so it's actually a really good source of calcite if you find Stony Peaks. The Stony Peaks also are typically around warmer biomes, so for instance, we have a jungle right here, so it makes sense that, there's no like big clash in temperature between the two. And no animals can spawn in this biome, but pillager outposts can generate here. Ocean biome temperatures are now matching land biome temperatures in Minecraft, so that means that anytime you find something like a warm ocean, you will always find a desert or a badlands nearby. In this case, we have both, actually, fairly close by. So there's badlands over here and desert pretty much everywhere else, so that's really cool. And the same thing happens for other oceans. For instance, a frozen ocean biome. So here I have found a frozen ocean biome. Just going to teleport to it, and the frozen oceans will generate with a snowy taiga, snowy plain, or snowy beach nearby. So here we are, and let's just see what we got. Things are still kind of loading in here a little bit, but it looks like we got a snowy plains nearby. And the same holds true for other oceans. So for instance, lukewarm ocean will be next to lukewarm biomes like jungle and savanna, whereas cold oceans will be next to biomes similar to taiga. As you can see here, beaches in general in Minecraft 1.18 are much wider than they were before. Lava lakes like this one will now only generate above Y0. Minecraft 1.18 also increases dungeon frequency, particularly below Y0 in height. So for instance here, we're well below Y0 at Y-49. There's a dungeon down here, and if we go over this way, there's another dungeon over here. If we go over this way, there's another dungeon over here, and there's another dungeon up here, and that's just in this one small area. So there are a lot more dungeons, especially beneath Y0 in this update. Another minor world generation change is that desert pyramids will now no longer generate on water. So there used to be big water lakes that they could generate on, but that is no longer the case. They will now usually generate with the pyramid at least partially buried, but they can generate at pretty much any height level instead of a fixed height level like before. Badland biomes can now once again generate red sandstone naturally, such as here at the entrance to a cave. And the Badlands can also generate as part of mountain biomes, so you can have like mountainous Badlands. Plus, mine shafts in these Badlands can generate a little bit higher up, and the red sand actually generates a little bit higher up as well. Caves in Minecraft 1.18 have been completely overhauled, as you can probably tell from this image here. And there's a bunch of different types of caves now. There's some open and cavernous, like Swiss cheese type caves. There's some spaghettified caves. There's some noodle-like caves, all with a bunch of variety and a bunch of different shapes and sizes. Like this one gets super, super narrow in here as it continues to descend downwards. And yeah, actually keeps going down here and goes down here, and then it goes back up. And so yeah, there's a whole bunch of crazy types of caves and patterns to caves now. Also, it's worth noting that the caves now generate down to -59, so they go from the surface all the way down to -59. And they also generate with different stone type depending on how deep you go in the world. So above Y0 is where you'll find stone, andesite, diorite, and granite, whereas below Y0 you'll actually find deep slate and tuff and gravel as the primary blocks, as you can see right down here. And also there is a transition level between the stone and the deep slate, which starts at Y8 and continues to Y0. So you'll see, like if we're in, let's see if we have an open cave here somewhere we can see it. Yeah, so like right over here, this layer, you have both stone and deep slate, and so this is between Y0 and Y8. And yes, we are on Y3 here. So, yep, there is a transition level between 0 and 8, and everything below that is deep slate and tuff. Additionally, caves can now contain aquifers, such as the ones you see in front of me here, and these are basically bodies of water with different heights, which are independent of sea level. So you can see we actually have a aquifer at this level here, and then one a couple blocks down in this level here, and this is all sort of like held back by sort of a wall of stone, and sometimes the aquifers can make like really cool things like waterfalls and stuff into caves. Sometimes below Y0, water aquifers can actually be replaced with lava. One such example of this is here. If I go ahead and go into spectator mode, you'll see that not only is the lava here on this section, but it also extends down into the cave here and throughout the rest of these caverns over in this direction as well. So yeah, these lava aquifers can be pretty large. Another world generation change is that rivers are now wider and deeper than they were before, so this results in fewer rivers that sort of dry up out of nowhere, and more continuous rivers that should be navigable by boat. You can just see if I sprint along the top of this river here, this river goes along for quite some ways, and actually makes it all the way out to the ocean before it disappears, and the same with the other river over here, which you can see is quite wide in some spots, so that is a pretty cool change to river generation. The empty dirt room at the heart of every mine shaft has now been replaced with an empty stone room at the heart of every mine shaft. Amethyst geodes will now only generate around or below Y30 in height, so this means you'll find fewer amethyst geodes when exploring the oceans, for example. Next up, we're going to talk about ore generation in Minecraft, more specifically how to find the ore and where ore generates now in 1.18, because basically everything about ore distribution changed entirely for this update. So first of all, let's take a look at coal ore. So coal ore. Coal ore can be found in the world anywhere between Y0 and Y256. So that is basically from where deep slate starts to the top of the world. But the coal actually attempts to generate twice. It generates once between an altitude of Y136 and Y256, and that generates pretty evenly with a lot of exposure to the air. As you can see right here, we're actually at 157, and this is a nice little core coal blob right here. And we have another bunch of blobs there, and there, and there, and there, and there, and there, and over here. So yeah, coal is pretty common in the mountains. And that's also in part due to the fact that the second place coal attempts to generate is actually a spread peaking at Y96, but generating between an altitude of Y0 and Y192. So it seems to me that between Y136 and Y192 is the ideal place to go for coal, which is, in other words, the mountains. So here we have, yeah, coal here. And yeah, it's exposed, and yeah, you can see there's a lot of coal here. Coal, 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 coal. Coal everywhere. So basically, to make a long story short, go to the mountains to find coal. Next up, we're going to talk about emerald ore and its distribution. Emerald ore can be found everywhere from -16 to +256, and it becomes more common the higher up in the world you go. So that means you want to go to the mountains to find emeralds, and we should find a few other emerald ore around here because it is frequent in the mountains. So yeah, there's some right there, there's some right here, there's some down there. There's one right there. So basically, go to the mountains to find emerald ore as well. Next ore we're taking a look at is iron ore. Iron ore is most commonly found, believe it or not, in the mountains in 118. It actually starts generating at Y80 and generates all the way up to 256. And you can see that here if I just look around. Iron there, iron there, iron there, iron here, iron there, iron there, iron over here. If I keep going, iron, 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 iron. Yeah, lots of iron in the mountains here. And the higher up you go, the more common iron becomes. But there are also other places deeper underground where you can also find iron. The second place that the game generates iron ore is between height -24 and +57, with iron ore generating with the most frequency around +16 in height. So what that means is if you're caving for iron, you want to effectively find the spot where deep slate starts. That's at height 8, and just go slightly above that. So I'm probably at like 12 or so. 10. Okay, so I'm at 10. So this is actually a really good spot to mine for iron here, since it's very close to height 16. And as you can see, we have some iron here. We got some iron there, some iron there, there. There's some iron. There's some iron down there. Probably some above. Yep, there's some up there. There's some up there. So yeah, this is a lot of iron in this area here and here. So pretty good spot to mine for iron at Y16. The third place it tries to generate is actually between -64 and -32, but that is very, very infrequent. So you'll see here, as we go down, you can see the iron ore sort of becomes less and less, like starting up here. This is still above -24 where we're at right now. We're at -3. So there's still a decent amount of iron up here, right? So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or so pieces of iron. But as we get down further and further, 6 right there. As we get down to here, below -24, it becomes very infrequent. So here, for instance, there's 1, 2, 3, and that's basically it. There's absolutely no iron, by the way, in the floor that we can see here, which is in stark contrast to up at 16. So, yeah, you can find iron down here occasionally, but it's pretty rare. You're going to find like deep slate iron really far down. Instead, if you're down here looking for iron, you want to be looking at these tough bits to look for the iron ore veins. And speaking of iron ore veins, let's see what to look for and how to identify them right now. So here is one example of an ore vein. This is an iron ore vein. You can tell it's an iron ore vein because there's iron ore mixed in with tuff. These generate below Y0 only. And there's also a block of raw iron over here, which is the only place that these generate naturally, is in these ore veins. Now, this can be a huge supply of iron or somewhat of a small vein. So let me clear out the area around here and show you how much iron is in these ore veins. Alright, so this is where we actually found the ore vein, and if we sort of back up here a little bit, you can see the massive amount of iron that is contained within this ore vein. So it goes downwards and to the left a little bit, upwards and to the left a little bit this way, and actually keeps going into the wall here. If we just kept digging, we would probably find a little bit more of the iron and, yeah, the tuff right here. So, yeah, you have to sort of explore to find all of the resources in the ore veins. But yeah, you can see this also goes down this way, and then it goes like this direction, and goes up here to this portion, and down here to this portion, and then keeps going into the wall here, and there's more iron and more tuff down this way. I just didn't want to clear it all out, but you can get thousands of blocks of iron potentially in these ore veins, and of course you can also find the raw ore blocks as I showed, so definitely worth exploring these if you find one naturally in your worlds. Next up, let's talk about copper ore. Copper ore can be found between -16 and +112, with the copper being most common at Y48. And we can see that here. We're down here at -5. We see a little bit of deep slate copper here, but not anything else pretty much in terms of copper. So if we go upwards, let's see if we see any more copper, and it should be becoming more frequent as we go up. So I don't see too much here. So let's go up into spectator mode and see if we see any more copper around Y48. So let's see, we are at 45 here. So here we should see some copper. Yep, there's some copper right there. This is pretty much the most frequent level to find copper here. So yeah, we see it pretty much everywhere up here. And there's some up there, and there's some there. So yeah, look around Y48 for your copper needs. Similarly, there are also copper ore veins, and you can find those by finding a lot of copper next to granite. So here I noticed that there was a lot of copper on the ceiling right next to granite and sort of intertwined with granite. So I know this is a copper vein, and also there is a raw copper ore here. So again, if I clear this whole area out, and so from the initial discovery of the ore vein here, we can see that there are hundreds and hundreds of copper blocks intermixed with the granite here that we can potentially mine out. So this is an excellent source of copper, and these, by the way, are only found above Y0. So yeah, just be aware of that. Next up, let's talk gold ore. Gold ore can generate between -64 and +32, but it peaks at Y-16. So we're up here right now, currently at +46, and you can see there's 0 gold here. Absolutely no gold around here except in my hand, of course, but let's just go ahead and go into spectator mode and watch as the gold distribution increases. So down here we are at 15, so we should see a little bit of gold here. So let's just fly around a little bit, see if we can spot some. So this is the same spot we looked for iron, by the way. So there's a little bit of gold there, a little bit of gold there, a little bit of gold here. As we go down to -16, we should see gold sort of increase in frequency, so that isn't unsurprising to us. So right about here is where we should see the most gold. So there's some down there. There's a little bit there. There's another vein right there. If we look around a little bit more, we might see, yeah, another one over there. And we'll probably see some in this cave over here is my guess. Yep, there's some right there. So yeah, if you're looking for gold, you want to go around -16 if you're just in normal caves. Also with gold, there's some extra gold that generates a little bit further down. So between -48 and -64. So if you find a really deep cavern like this, chances are you might find a little bit of gold in there. Finally, additional extra gold generates in Badlands biomes between Y79 and Y256. You can see here, I'm at 117 in a Badlands biome, actually in a eroded Badlands biome. And if I look around here, there's gold here, there's gold here, there's gold there, and there, and there, and there. And if I look around even more, there's gold over here. So just lots and lots and lots of gold in the Badlands biome. So definitely, if you can find a mountain, there's also, I think, gold up here I saw. Yeah, gold right there as well. So yeah, if you can find a mountainous Badlands biome, definitely go there and look for some caves because there's probably a ton of gold inside. Let's stick in more or less the same area here to talk about lapis lazuli ore. So lapis lazuli can be found between -32 and +32. That's the first spot it generates, and it peaks at an altitude of 0. So right where the deep slate takes over from stone, like roughly right here, around either side of this is the most common spot to find lapis. And yeah, we can see that over here. Got some deep slate lapis in the wall at this point. Let's see if we see any others around this area. There's one right there, which is a couple blocks below the point where the deep slate takes over. Do we have any up here? Let's just check. Yes, we have one right over here, a couple blocks above where that spot is. But you'll notice that in the roof here, there's no lapis, and down here at the bottom, on the bottom bit, there's no lapis down here either. So yeah, that sort of shows that that is the case. Now lapis also generates a second time between -64 and +64, but it's actually hidden similar to ancient debris. That is, it's not exposed to the air, so you won't find it like exposed like this. But if you're sort of tunneling like down at this level, like this is at -44, yeah, then you might find lapis like hidden somewhere like in here. Obviously, I'm not going to go and search for it now, but you might find some lapis like hidden if you're like strip mining for it, for instance. So yeah, that is kind of a cool thing. So basically, lapis lazuli, you want to go right to where stone transitions to deep slate, and that's where you want to mine for it. Next up, redstone ore. So redstone ore can be found between height Y15 and -64, and it becomes more common the deeper you go. In fact, you can see that visually here, in that we are actually at about Y15, and there's no redstone that generates above where we are at currently. That's why we don't see any redstone ore in the ceiling. We see a little bit starting here at about, let's see, what is this, Y10 or so. There's one up here at like 12 or so. There's one here at 10. But if we look down here, redstone, 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 redstone. So the deeper you go for redstone, the more you'll find. So that is how you will find redstone ore. Lastly, but certainly not least, the diamond ore. So diamond ore can be found in Minecraft 1.18 between height 16 and -64, and it becomes more common the further down you go. And we can sort of see that here, in that we are at Y16 right now. And if we look around on this level at the floor here, that's still above Y0, we'll see that, yeah, not too many diamonds here, which means that actually regular diamond ore, this block here, has become quite rare. So if you find one, do keep it and consider silk touching it. But we should then, if we go further down, see a deep slate diamond ore that generated, because diamonds are much more common down here, and indeed we do see such a diamond over here, and it just so happens to be at -35. So the further down you go in the world, the more likely you are to find diamonds. However, you can also find fossils with diamonds in them, and let me show you that right now. When fossils generate below Y0 in height, they now, instead of having coal ore, generate with deep slate diamond ore, which means that fossils can actually be a pretty substantial source of diamonds if you can find one buried underground. You can see here we have about half a dozen diamonds exposed here, and if I dig in here, we can probably find at least a few more, and there's a couple right here. And with that, that's it for the ore generation. There are a couple of new advancements in the game in this update. One such advancement is the Star Trader advancement, where you trade with a villager at world height, which you can see right there. Another advancement involves falling from world height all the way down to the bottom of the world, and I mean the very bottom of the world. So if I do just that, you'll see we get the Caves and Cliffs advancement. There's also an advancement for playing a music disc in a jukebox in a meadow called Sound of Music. Finally, there's an advancement for riding a strider 50 blocks through the overworld. So if I get on this strider and ride this guy for 50 blocks while we're in the overworld, we will get the advancement Feels Like Home. And there we go. Feels Like Home. Very good. So, those are the 4 new advancements in 1.18. The big drip leaf plant was changed so that it can now only be placed on moss, clay, and all types of dirt. You can now shear cave vines, twisting vines, weeping vines, as well as kelp, and this will actually prevent all those plants from growing any further by setting the age of the tip of each of those plants to 25. So this is a way you can prevent plant growth without using, for instance, string underneath or above these plants. We now get substantially more copper per copper ore mined than we did previously in 1.17. So now instead of 2 to 3 copper per ore, we now get 2 to 5 copper per ore, which is a substantial increase even before fortune is applied. Sleeping in Minecraft will now, as of 1.18, only reset the weather cycle if the weather is raining or it's a thunderstorm. Otherwise, the weather cycle continues independent of if you sleep or not. Clouds in your world will now appear higher. They increase the cloud height from 128 blocks to 192 blocks to accommodate the new terrain. Splash water bottles can now damage Endermen. The list of effects the player is under is now listed on the right side of the screen other than the left side of the screen, and this allows you to see both what effects you have as well as the time left on each effect, even if you have the recipe book open on the left. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, all the survival relevant changes to Minecraft 1.18. There were also other minor things such as bug fixes and things like new music added if you're playing in survival and also are in the new biomes. Plus there were a bunch of texture changes and other things, but for now, that is it for me today. Thank you guys so very much for watching. If you enjoyed, please leave a like, be sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.